It starts with a single woman, alone, dancing, no music, no celebration, no festival, just movement, desperate, relentless, as though her limbs are possessed, like she's been marionetted by some invisible hand of chaos, and no one knows why. This is Strasbourg, July of 1518. A city not just sitting on the edge of crisis, but teetering, precariously, between the past and the future. In the middle of the Holy Roman Empire, in an age when people believe just as much in saints as they did in science, a nightmare unfolds in broad daylight. A horror that doesn't crawl out of the shadows with swords or fire, but dances its way through the cobbled streets. Imagine you're living in a city already burdened by the plague, by crop failure, by war and famine, and the wrath of a God you're told you've angered, constantly. And then, out of nowhere, someone starts dancing. And they don't stop. Her name was Frau Trophäa. That's how the chroniclers remember her. But even her name, maybe misspelled, maybe mistranslated, feels like a ghost's echo from another world. On a hot July day, she steps out into the street and begins to dance. Not a jig, not a waltz, not a party. She just moves. Hours go by, she doesn't stop. Her husband pleads with her. Neighbors watch in horror. No one knows what she's doing or why. The local clergy begin whispering about demonic possession, and when the sun sets and she's still moving, twitching, trembling, soaked in sweat, people stop treating it like a curiosity and start treating it like a curse. And here's where the weirdness snowballs. Within days, dozens are doing it. By some accounts, hundreds. The sound of shoes scraping stone becomes the city's new soundtrack. Dancers, red-faced and wheezing, flailing in some kind of ecstatic delirium, spinning in the streets with blistered feet and bloodied clothes. Some collapse from exhaustion, others simply drop dead where they stand, and more keep joining. We're talking about something so public, so obvious, and yet so completely inexplicable that the city descends into a kind of panicked awe. What do you do when people start dying while dancing? The city leaders, God bless them, do what authorities always do when confronted with something they don't understand. They consult experts. And boy, were those experts working with a different playbook. Let's talk about medical science in 1518. Forget germ theory. Forget modern psychology. This is a world where illness is thought to come from an imbalance in the body's four humors: blood, phlegm, black bile, and yellow bile. It's ancient Greek pseudoscience dressed up in medieval robes. So when physicians are brought in to examine the phenomenon, what do they conclude? That these dancers, these raving, twitching bodies scattered across the town square, are suffering from excess blood heat. Yeah, their blood is too hot. And the prescription they recommend? More dancing. That's right. They think the way to cure a person of non-stop dancing is to encourage even more of it. You can't make this up. Musicians are hired, fiddlers, pipers, drummers. Stages are erected, dancing zones are roped off. Some accounts suggest the city even paid healthy citizens to join in, to help the afflicted dance it out. The logic was, if the body wants to dance, let it. Let it burn itself out. Let it sweat out the madness. But what happens when the dance doesn't end? What happens when the musicians can't keep up? When people are collapsing with broken ribs and torn ligaments and sheer exhaustion, and still trying to move? In the world of the 16th century, every natural phenomenon had a supernatural cause. Disease, divine punishment, earthquake, God's anger, insomnia. Maybe a witch cursed you. So what do you do when 400 people are dancing themselves into the grave? You turn to religion. You beg for intercession. You fear that this might be the devil's work. But the devil isn't the only suspect. Enter Saint Vitus. a 4th century Christian martyr who, by the Middle Ages, had become associated with convulsions, seizures, and dancing. St. Vitus's dance, they called it, a term used for centuries to describe neurological disorders. People believed that if St. Vitus was offended, if you had failed to honor him properly, he might curse you with an irresistible compulsion to dance. So religious leaders tried another tactic. They hauled the worst afflicted to a shrine dedicated to the saint, deep in the Vosges mountains. Pilgrims, priests, and afflicted dancers made the journey barefoot. Once there, they were given red shoes. They danced again, but this time in a controlled, sacred setting. And slowly, the madness began to ebb. So what actually happened? It's 500 years later. We've been to the moon. We've mapped the human genome. We've built computers that can beat us at chess. And we still don't know what happened in Strasbourg in 1518. Let's break down the theories: mass psychogenic illness or mass hysteria. This is the prevailing modern theory. In short, stress breaks the mind. The people of Strasbourg were under incredible pressure. Plague, famine, inflation, religious upheaval. Superstition ran deep, and when one person snapped, others followed. Like a psychological virus, panic became performance. Think about how contagious emotion can be. We've seen it in stock market crashes, in riots, in wartime propaganda. What if this was that same primal human mechanism, but unleashed in a society that believed in saints, curses, and demons? Another potential reason: ergot poisoning. This one's popular because it's cinematic. Ergot is a fungus that infects rye and produces chemicals similar to LSD. It's been blamed for everything from the Salem witch trials to the birth of rock and roll. If a contaminated crop got into the local bread supply, it could cause hallucinations, muscle spasms, even convulsions. But here's the problem. Ergotism typically causes pain, not pleasure. It makes you curl up and seize, not dance in rhythm with a crowd. And if the outbreak lasted weeks, how did the same food affect so many in the same way for so long? Unlikely. There's also religious fervor or cultic ecstasy. Could this have been a form of religious trance, a mass ritual, a way of expressing penitence or fear in the only language people understood, the body? Medieval Europe was awash in religious processions, flagellants, holy feasts, and mystic experiences. Dancing had symbolic meaning. Maybe this was how the community processed guilt or despair. Or maybe some truly believed that they were possessed and danced accordingly. What must it have felt like to believe your body wasn't your own? That you had been claimed by something bigger, darker, older than you? Another potential cause thrown out there: unconscious protest or social reaction. This one's fascinating. What if the dancing was, in some subconscious way, an act of rebellion, a release valve? When people are powerless, sometimes they find strange ways to protest. Could the dance have been a form of bodily protest, a ritual scream in movement form? After all, what better metaphor for life under suffering than being forced to keep moving until you collapse? By September, it was over. As mysteriously as it began, the dancing stopped. No one was arrested. No one found a patient zero. No trial, no explanation. Just silence. It was like the city had woken from a trance. The red shoes came off, the music faded, and history moved on. But here's the part that chills me. This wasn't the first dancing mania. It wasn't the last. Similar outbreaks occurred across medieval Europe, in Aachen, in Saxony, even in the Netherlands. These were repeat performances of the same strange script. And yet 1518 remains the most infamous because of its scale and because of what it says about us. The story of the dancing plague isn't just a historical curiosity. It's a window into human psychology. It's a reminder that the boundary between mind and body, between stress and sickness, between order and chaos, is perilously thin. That society, even when it looks stable, can crack in surreal and unexpected ways. What happened in Strasbourg may never be fully explained, but maybe that's the point. Maybe the lesson isn't about answers, but about understanding how little we know about ourselves, how we want to believe we're rational creatures, logical, controlled. And then a woman steps into the street and starts dancing, and we're reminded that underneath all of it, beneath the technology and the culture and the science and the certainty, there's still a part of us that's ancient, wild, and maybe, just maybe, still listening for the drumbeat that only we can hear. Thanks for listening to this new voice and style at Constantly Curious. We hope that you can listen, learn, and relax. Until next time, stay curious.